In this episode, we're going to delve into how you recap the first half of the year to make sure that you hit your goals in the second half. Welcome to the Resilient Retail Game Plan. I'm Catherine Erdly, and this podcast is here to share retail industry trends, insights, and best practices for you, the retailer who's serious about building something that lasts. We're coming up fast on the end of the first half of the year, but if that fills you with dread, then don't panic. In this episode, we're going to be talking through why mid-year beats the 1st of January, because we have real data now, not just a theory about how the year's going to go. And then we're also going to be looking at how you get clarity on what happened in the first half of the year, as well as put together a plan for the second half. Stay tuned, and also a reminder that this episode comes with a free downloadable resource. Head to resilientretailclub.com/recap and get your free download with an outline for how you can recap your first half of the year and make a plan for the second. So in this episode, we're going to dive deep into how you actually take some time to step back, take a look at the first half of the year, and use that information to springboard into a successful second half. And what I love to do with this process, and this is a process that I've used in my membership group, in courses, and with clients over and over again, is I like to start by looking back and then look forward. So by looking back, let's go all the way back to the beginning of the year. Now, I hope, based on everything that I've talked about on the podcast or in my programs that you've been in, that you took the time at the beginning of the year to set yourself some goals. So at the end of the first half, this is the perfect time to go get those goals out of wherever you've stashed them, whether which dark digital corner you've put them in or which desk drawer you've put your notebook. Pull them out and take a look. Do you remember what those goals were? Did you set a sales goal, a revenue target? Did you have personal income goals? Or did you have maybe some non-financial goals? So things like wanting to launch a new product, a new stockist, or learn even a new skill. And this is the perfect opportunity for you to think without blame or without self-recrimination and to figure out how much of this you've actually achieved. Be honest, but be fair. Some goals shift because circumstances shift, not because you failed. I certainly talked to a lot of people who had big goals for the year, and then because of something that happened to them in their personal life or personal circumstances, or maybe just some big change that happened in the business, they've just had to start again from scratch. They'll really take this point in the year as a great point for them to stop, regroup, and look at moving forward. Once you've pulled out those goals, now is the perfect opportunity for you, without any self-recrimination or self-blame, to actually take a look and see how much of your goals you have actually achieved. You need to be honest, but do be fair to yourself as well. If you've had major circumstances that have changed in the business, or perhaps even in your personal life, then this is not the time to beat yourself up about it, but it is a good opportunity for you to take a look at those goals that you set and decide how much you've actually done. And also what goals still matter. I do this myself in my own business, and sometimes something that seemed like it was a high priority in the first half I've moved on, or I've come up with different ideas for what I want to do, and it no longer feels like this is a goal that's aligned with my business, and that's absolutely fine. So let's talk about the numbers for a little bit. What are the numbers that you really want to look into at the end of the first half? Well, I would suggest that you quite simply look at your total sales. So all of the sales that you've taken up till now to the end of June from the beginning of January, and have a look at where they are versus your plan. Now, you may not have set yourself a plan. If you didn't, that's fine, although I do strongly recommend setting plans for lots of reasons. But you could also look, for example, at last year, or even just get a general sense of how you feel about that number. Is that number ahead of where you thought it would be? Is it behind, or is it on track? And why do you think that is? I think the most important thing when we're looking at numbers and we're looking at recapping your business, we really want to make sure that we are taking the opportunity to not just think about what the numbers are, but why you think they happened. So for example, let's say you've had a brilliant first half. You have taken twice as much money as you thought you were going to take. Why not? Who knows? That may have happened. If that's the case, do take the time just to get really clear on why you think that is. Is it because actually you launched a new product and it's done brilliantly well? Is it, for example, that you've made a major investment into your email marketing and that's really paid off? Is it that you've had a really fruitful collaboration with an influencer or somebody like that? What is it, do you think, that has really helped you? Or, on the other hand, is it a number of different things? Knowing why you've been successful is as useful as, or more useful than just looking at the numbers. And equally, if you feel like it hasn't really worked out the way that you wanted it to, or maybe you're under where you'd like to be for plan or for last year, this is your opportunity to think about the why there too. Now, it's even more important than when you're looking at when sales are up. It's even more important than ever for you to not be overly harsh on yourself. This is not about making you feel terrible, but it is about you understanding what happened. Is it, for example, you went on holiday during a busy time of the year and you had to shut the shop, so that's had a really big impact? Is it that you've struggled with personal situations, something that's happened in your life that you know means that you haven't been as focused? Or maybe it's you've had a really difficult team member, or footfall's been down, or customers have been spending less. There are so many different things that it could be, but the key thing here is to be curious and inquisitive, but not to make yourself feel worse. You can also delve into what's actually been selling or not selling. In an ideal world, you would have a look over the last 6 months and find out what are the top 5 items that you've sold by value, because sales value, that's money in, which is always really important. But also you might look at units. So how many units have you sold? Unit bestsellers are useful to track as well as value bestsellers because they are an indication of what your customer is choosing on a regular basis. So it's really important for you to understand what the units are as well. If you've been tracking your cost prices correctly, you'll also be able to pull out the bestsellers in terms of your profit, which is another thing that is interesting to look at. But if all you can get is your top bestsellers by value, then that's still really useful too. And if they're not the same, if your bestsellers by sales volume are not the same as your bestsellers by profit, that's also another interesting thing to know, because that suggests that you can make a real difference to your profit margin by actually improving the prices on some of the things that sell the best. So this is a really great opportunity for you to step back. And again, what I would really strongly recommend is that you don't just look at which were the best sellers, but you ask yourself why. Why do you think they were best sellers? Is it because they were a certain price point that your customer liked? Was your customer really into a certain type of product? Or did you just get lucky because it was on trend? Did you find that all of the items that were a certain color or a certain fragrance, were they the ones that really performed? What is it that you can pull from that data? And if you've got a wide product range, you may well want to pull even your top 10 or maybe even 20 or 50, but really understand the best sellers, the ones that were really driving the sales. What does that actually tell you about your business and about your customer? As well as looking at your best sellers, you can also look at what I call the dead weight audit. In other words, what did you not sell so much of? Definitely have a look and see if there are any products that sold 0 in the last 6 months that you currently have stock of. This is something that, honestly, if you've sold 0 of something in 6 months, you definitely want to consider definitely not buying it again, but maybe even discounting it or something to get it moving. You also want to think about, are there any items that you actually bought and they maybe sold okay, but they were disappointing? Worst sellers are almost harder to calculate than your best sellers because there's lots of different ways that you can look at something. But typically, I tend to look at the things with the lowest sales with the highest amount of stock value behind them so that you can really understand where your money's tied up and where things aren't moving. And just like for the best sellers, when it comes to your worst sellers, you really want to take some time to think about why. Why do you think people didn't like it? Is it something that they used to like that it's moved on? Is there more competition in this particular area? Does somebody else close to you start selling this and you think it's impacted sales? Or could it just be one of those things where you bought something you thought was going to be fantastic and frankly, it turned out not to be? It happens to everybody. So if that's happened to you, don't feel bad about it. Don't decide that it means that you're terrible at what you do, but just think about how you can take that learning and move on. Other things that it's good to look at. Conversion rate is something that I reckon should be looked at once a month, but definitely at 6-month point, you want to be seeing how is your conversion rate doing and how is it shifting. So your conversion rate is the number of purchases made compared to the number of visitors. You can track it very easily online. It's one of the key figures you'll see on most dashboards for e-commerce brands. And in store, you can actually also do a conversion calculation if you can count the number of people coming in compared to the number of transactions. If it's something that you don't track continuously in store, maybe do a little test just to see how your conversion rate is doing, and that can be very informative as well. Average order value is something that, again, I think should be looked at once a month. But again, at the 6-month point, you can see how does your average order value compare? Is it going up? Is it going down? What's going on with that? Has anything shifted since January? Have a look at your sales channels. If you sell in more than one sales channel, many people sell across websites and their own stores. They might also sell at wholesale. They might sell on Etsy, not on the high street, many other different channels that you could be selling on. So do take a moment to have a look and actually analyze which is your best sales channel. Is it still the same? Has it shifted? How are the different channels doing? Did everything perform in the same way in the first half, or did you have some channels that were actually doing brilliantly and other ones that are not doing so well? Are you still investing in the channel that's actually driving results, or are you defaulting to habit? So, for example, you might have seen huge growth in one particular area, but you realize actually you still think of it as a small channel. You don't really give it as much time and attention as you should, and therefore that's giving you good direction for what you should be looking at for the second half. Social media is something else that you can take a look at. And if you haven't done a bit of a social media audit recently, then I do recommend doing it at the halfway point. Not as a vanity metric, but more as a signal. What is working? What are you seeing that works? What types of posts are you getting any reaction to? Do people respond when you show up and talk on your stories, but you don't get much interaction on your feed? Are you still posting for the audience you had in January or the one that you have now? You don't have to have all the answers, but it can be really informative to go into, say, Instagram and look at some of your metrics, look at the last 6 months and see what posts had the most shares, what posts had the most saves, what posts had the most interactions, and see if you can track what posts were driving traffic to your website when you look at any peaks of sales that you had online, for example, or even when you had peaks in store. Can you match any of that back to social media content that you put out? This is a great opportunity for you to just make sure that you are leaning into the formats and the subjects and the type of content that your customers are responding to. A relationship audit is a great thing to do, especially at the halfway point. And the relationship audit is really all about anybody who you work with. It could be your suppliers. It could be people that you collaborate with. It could be stockists, if you're a wholesale brand. Who moved the needle and who cost you more energy than they returned? Many of us have a lot of issues with couriers, for example. How are you doing with your courier relationship? Are you happy with it? Do you feel secure going in towards the second half? And the same with your stockists, your collaborators, your suppliers. These are all relationships that you want them to be firm before you go into the second half. So if you've got any questions about anybody, or there's anything that you'd like to change in terms of service providers or things that you want to invest in, then now's the time. This episode of the Resilient Retail Game Plan is brought to you by Faire, the online wholesale platform built for independent retailers. If you run a shop, which I know lots of you do, you'll know how much time and energy goes into finding the right products, the ones that feel unique, reflect your brand, and that your customers will really love. That's why so many retailers I work with are already using Faire. On Faire, you can discover thousands of brands from local designers to global favourites all in one place. You can filter by values that matter to you, like not on Amazon, eco-friendly, or made in the UK. And with their 60-day payment terms and free returns on first orders, it's a great way to try something new for your shop. If you'd like to give them a try, the team at Faire are offering you 50% off and free shipping on your first order with the code RESILIENT50. That's RESILIENT50. Valid until 31st of July 2026. Thanks to Faire for helping independent shops stay resilient, one order at a time. We've talked about the numbers. I'd like to talk a little bit more about some of the kind of more subjective parts of analysing your business performance. The first thing is to make sure you celebrate your wins. So I call this section what worked and what didn't. So first of all, we want to make sure you take some time to actually name your wins out loud. Don't rush past them. Small business owners, we are absolutely terrible at having a huge achievement and then brushing straight past it and on to the next thing, or beating ourselves up that we haven't achieved something else as well. So make sure that at this point in the review, you are actually taking the time to really sit into what your strengths are, what you did well, what you achieved, and did you even think this was possible? A couple of years ago, if you looked at the business, would you have believed everything that you've achieved now? Then I'd ask you to think about what genuinely added value, either time, money, energy, or all three. What were some things that you did either inside the business or even for yourself that supported the business? For example, look at healthy eating or exercising in a way that supported you as a business owner that really helped. That could be something that has worked really well. Do you have a great new team member? Did you start a new marketing tactic that's worked brilliantly or take on a new supplier? What has it been that actually worked well and made the business better? Being able to identify those things and lean into them is really important. And then what flat out didn't work? Be really specific, not vague. If there are things that you brought in that didn't sell, list it out. If there are troublesome employees that really cost you a lot of time, effort, and energy, then list those out. Again, this is not about beating yourself up. It's about identifying what didn't work and what you don't want to repeat. What I do differently question. This is your second half strategy hiding in plain sight. You can almost take what you would start, stop, or continue from the first half and think about what you therefore would do for the second half. So what do you want to start doing in the second half? What do you want to stop doing and what do you want to double down on? That can be a really good way to just get some quick, clear direction as to what you want to do for the second half. And then just have a think about how the business feels right now. Now, it may seem like an odd thing to say to talk about feelings in an episode that's mostly about numbers, but I definitely think that we all need to be building businesses that feel right for us. So pay attention to where the energy is, what you've been enjoying, and where it isn't. If something feels off, then get specific about what kind of off it feels like. Is it circumstantial? For example, you love what you do, but you wish you paid yourself more or you're just exhausted. Or is it directional, which is a nagging feeling that you've drifted from what you originally set out to build? Or is it worry? I call these the 3 a.m. thoughts that feel catastrophic in the dark but look different in the daytime. I actually really like a SWOT analysis as an emotional clearing exercise, not just a strategy tool. SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. It's the kind of thing that people set you as second round interview tasks to do about a business, or it's the kind of thing that you do in business school when you're looking at case studies. But I also think that it's a perfect opportunity for you as a business owner to really reflect on where you're at right now. And a 20-minute SWOT, set yourself a timer, get yourself a piece of A4 paper, fold it in half again, get yourself 4 quadrants, write strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats on it, and then just start brain dumping. You can also, I often tell people to write areas of improvement instead of weaknesses if you don't like really pondering your own weaknesses too much. So under strengths, you're going to list out everything that you're genuinely good at and how you're using it. So strengths typically refer to, when you're using this in a business context, as internal strengths, internal advantages that a business has. So think about what you do well, what your business does well, what your team does well, what you're really happy with, what makes you really pleased when you think about the business. Weaknesses or areas of improvement. What do you already know needs fixing? What are things that you internally, when it comes to the business, you think could be done better? And again, really, really important to not let this be like something that you do that makes you feel really bad about yourself. Opportunities. So these are the external things. So what's sitting right in front of you that you haven't acted on yet? What are some things that you could be doing in the business or maybe interesting new areas of direction, new product types, new channels that you could go for? What are some things that you could do to help you grow? And threats. This is where the 3 a.m. thoughts go. Get them out of your head and onto paper. This is a way for you to really just brainstorm everything that you have in your head that is making you feel uncomfortable or you're worried about. And sometimes just writing it all down really helps. And these are the external threats, external factors that you think could have an impact on your business over the next year. Another great exercise, if we're talking about the emotional connection, is what I call the 20-year interview exercise. If you were interviewed in 20 years about this business, what would you want to be saying? And are you on a path that leads there, or have you gone off course? So for example, some people might say in 20 years' time, I will talk about how I exited this business after successfully running it for several years, and I handed it off to somebody else, and I really got a lot of value out of it the time that I was running it, but I was happy to say goodbye when I did. Some people in their 20-year interview will say, I went on to build this to be a household name and a high street brand that was recognized across the country. All of those things are completely acceptable. I mean, everyone has their own vision of what they want it to be. And some people will say, I'm still running my business because I run it around my life and my family, and that's always the way I want it to be. It's never the main thing I focus on, but it's always there, and it's always given me joy and satisfaction. Who knows what your 20-year interview will be, but taking some time to think about it, especially if you felt like there's something off, can help you identify if you're moving in the right direction. So now let's talk about refocusing for half two. So we've really looked at the first half, we've thought about how it made us feel, and we've thought about ourselves and where we're at as a business owner. But now for the second half, we are going to set an actual number. You may have this sales goal from January. You might have set yourself a goal for the full year. If you haven't, then I definitely recommend that you set yourself an actual number that you want to achieve. If you set yourself a goal in January and you're way off it, either way over or way under, you may want to adjust it, set yourself a new goal for the second half that feels more realistic. And then also, what are your 2 or 3 non-financial goals for the second half? So, for example, you might want to launch a new product or to start a new selling channel. It may be something like a project in the business, like you want to have a new website, or who knows what else it might be. But think about what your key opportunities are or things that you'd like to really work on in the second half. And then key dates planning, map out what's coming and whether you're ready for it. If Christmas is your biggest trading period, you need to start that plan now. Think about when you're ordering your product, when the stock's coming in, if it's already ordered, your marketing plan, wholesale deadlines if you're selling at wholesale. And then what other key trading dates, launches or seasons apply to your business in the second half. Work backwards from those dates. What needs to happen and by when? Revisit any other goals you might have from January. Are you keeping them, adjusting them, or replacing them entirely? And then write yourself a sentence. By December 31st, I will have. Make it concrete. So that could be, for example, by the 31st of January, I made it through Christmas without getting the flu and without burning out. And I'm really happy to have balanced things really well this year. Or you might say by the 31st of December, I have reached this financial goal. Whatever it might be, it gives you a really clear intention for the second half. So think about what you want to do next. Make sure that you list out not everything that you want to do, but what needs to be done in the third quarter and what can be moved to the fourth. So make yourself a list of what you want to have ready to go for if you do, for example, a third quarter check-in. So that is your homework. Don't forget, if you want to get all of this in a downloadable format, you can go to resilientretailclub.com/recap and you'll have a PDF which will let you do your own first half recap and your second half plan. But make sure you at least write down your second half sales goal and what's your main goal that you want to achieve by the end of the year. Write that down today, not tomorrow. And why not head over to Instagram at Resilient Retail Club, drop me a note or send me an email at Catherine@resilientretailclub.com and let me know what your thoughts are, what you're aiming for in the second half of the year. And set yourself your tasks, but don't overwhelm yourself. Make sure that you have just a couple of things you're going to work on in the third quarter to make sure you are building towards your full year goal. Thank you so much for listening. And don't forget to like, follow, or subscribe to be the first to know about each new episode. And don't forget to head over to resilientretailclub.com/recap to get your own version of this as a handy PDF that lets you do your own business check-in.